Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And we did a whole week on talking about learning to program, but now we're going to talk about a glide path into this that is becoming really popular lately. I'm Roy. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm a startup investor in the future work. And today we have one of our short list of desired co-investors and past co-investors, Lee. Lee is an investor at Root, which does hard technology, early stage investing. And previously, when he was an angel, we, through an open angels program that we have where we back angel investors, backed Lee. And he was a software engineer and technical leader at startups before that. And so Lee, would love any perspective on, I've heard about this low code thing, which is meant to be a way to get into this stuff. How shall I get started?
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff in the kind of low code, no code space. And I guess my jujitsu on this question is I'm actually much more interested in some code than in low code and no code. And I think the reason is—
So you're like, goodbye no code, and low code is okay if it's a bridge into some code.
Yeah, so I think there's a natural progression. I think those things are amazing, and they're going to be, I think, really important areas. And we may even invest in some of them. But I think what's interesting is you look at how hard it was when PayPal was founded to do credit card processing on the internet. The banks told them you'll never be able to do this, and they had to do all kinds of plumbing and encryption. And now it's Stripe with 5 lines of code, famously, right? And I think that floor keeps dropping. At Teespring and at SideTour, we built an e-commerce platform from scratch. And now I think you would use Shopify, and then Toby just announced yesterday.
I remember I was very early in the modern wave of the learn to code movement, 10, 11 years ago. And I remember sitting down with a Stanford CS professor, not Mehran Sami, who now does the intro CS class, but I guess his predecessor. And he's like, yeah, problem is today, nobody does programming. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, these abstractions. And he was sort of in the assembly language, machine code. It's not programming unless you're wiring the circuit.
Yeah, I really disagree with that.
I love it.
Totally. I get where people are coming from with that, but I really disagree. I think Excel is the most popular programming language in the world. And usually what happens is people are a domain expert on something, right? And they're making a spreadsheet about library books that they're cataloging at home, or they're doing financial models, or whatever it is. And then they start to realize oh, I can write a formula. I can make this multiply by this. And then you go deep enough.
Thinking computationally.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. You're thinking in terms of objects and operations. And I know someone who dropped out of high school to do a data entry job. And when he realized that, because he basically thought, well, I could make $15 an hour. Why would I graduate high school? And so then he basically taught himself Excel formulas. Then he started Googling the problems. He started writing code.
Is this you, Lee? No, this is not you.
No, this is a coworker at Pivotal, actually. And now he's a very senior engineer. He's worked at some amazing startups, and he basically taught himself to code that way. And so I think I like to tell people to learn to code, and it annoys me that that's become a thing on the internet that people don't like learn to code is a thing bros say. But I don't mean go to college and get a CS degree. I mean go under the hood in Excel.
Things for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Go under the hood in Weebly or Wix or Squarespace. And I think one thing that low code, when I think about low code or writing some code, one of the really hard parts about getting started is doing the DevOps and where does this code live? And so you look at Replit and Glitch, and recently saw this company called Motif.land.
Sorry,
exactly. Yeah, I saw a company called Motif.land, and they're doing a similar thing where it's basically just write the code here and don't think about hosting it. And then there's maybe something slightly harder than that, which is use Heroku, use Netlify. You're doing a little bit of hosting, but both those things are quite a bit easier.
Sorry.
Exactly. I mean, I'm name dropping all your. I didn't even plan half of those. But yeah, awesome companies for that reason. And I think the other thing is these skills starts to translate. A lot of people will edit Markdown, even journalists, right? In college will let me go into the Markdown and add the italics or the bold or whatever. You start to learn HTML and CSS. Well, HTML kind of actually looks a lot like React. And if you're in an environment where people are kind of doing the plumbing, the hard part of the more difficult parts of React related to state management and messaging and that, but then you can if you build those components, you build a design system, then anyone who wants to solve a problem can kind of reuse React components. They look exactly like HTML.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it reminds me of all the people who learned how to code by customizing their MySpace profile. Well, let me ask you actually, Lee.
Yeah.
You learned to program. Tell us your story of how you learned to program. What was your first thing?
That's really funny. My friend Michael Aiello I guess this was probably in middle school, was like, hey, there's this thing on your computer called QBasic. If you type QBasic, you get this thing. And then he sort of showed me some of the commands, and I started downloading people's QBasic apps, and then I was kind of making text adventures. Then I edited the Snakes game, and I removed the subroutine for wall detection, and
Honestly,
then racked up a high
really
score.
wish I had guessed before you told me, because modding a game is such a popular way in. But sorry, you removed what subroutine?
There's a wall detection subroutine.
Oh, so it just went through the wall.
Yeah, I just went through the wall, and then I could have an infinite score. And then I showed him the score, and I don't know why I did that, but I did. And then I started playing with like HTML.
Showing off. That's why you did that.
Yeah, exactly. I was playing with HTML and Visual Basic and HyperCard. And then in high school, we learned some C++. And then I did go study. So my degree is not technically computer science, but I took a bunch of programming classes and kind of learned more formally.
Well, and you've been such an active member of the Olin community too, where like engineering is learned in such a thoughtful and intentional way. And the thing I just say about your path to draw parallel to low-code tools is I personally find it's very difficult to learn any of these things if you're learning it for the sake of learning it. Like to learn Webflow. It's like, you can get in there and mess around, but man, you're going to get confused quick. Unless what you have is a desire of something you want to make. You want to make a thing, then learning what you need to learn in order to make the thing, and maybe making the thing is an infinite score on the Snakes game or something like that. I think that can be really a powerful thing to do. So yeah, those are my 2 cents. And then for everybody watching, the reason we call it not advice is because we're not telling you what to do. We're sharing our own experiences, and you're deciding. And most advice is the person is trying to get you to live their life, not yours. So I'm going to do more of these. This is fun.
This is great.
To be continued. Thank you.
Yes, sounds good.